Epstein from Social Stay, who I've written about before. A very interesting company, and Seth is appreciated because you're working me in amongst a lot of other stuff that you've got going on. Really want to talk to you about what happened in Dallas, the incident in Dallas. And you are an uber guerrilla marketer, and sometimes guerrilla marketing can go wrong. So I want to hear a little bit about that story. So you're down in Dallas, you're at a big show, one of the biggest shows for you of the year, and you're looking for a way to make a big impact with very little dollars. So you decided to hire some parkourers to do some acrobatics and sort of mix things up. And they did. They mixed things up. How did that work out?
At this trade show called High Tech. And so the idea was we would do a similar thing, but we would use ninjas. And the thought was that these guys would be sort of hiding behind trees, and you'd be walking and you'd see somebody on a building, or they'd be hanging from a, they'd be, just in all of these crazy places. So that was the idea. So we placed it out on Craigslist, and interestingly enough, we got the head of the Parkours Texas. The guy responded, and he was like, "Yeah, we'd love to do it. And we can do all these acrobatics and all that." And I'm thinking, all right, that's great. And so we hire him, and he's like, "Oh, I can get a bunch of my friends together. We're all parkours." And then he put it out on the Parkours of Texas site, and got a lot of guys and gals to come along. And so that was the idea. It was have these ninjas, and people would be speaking like, "Hey, what are these things? What are these things?" And then people would say, "Oh, I think it's this company, Social Stay. What's Social Stay? What's Social Stay?" So that was the concept behind it. But what happened was very different.
So these ninjas are taking your instructions, your very explicit instructions, and then what did they go off and do?
Yeah, well, we gave him some basic rules. One was that you can't be on the grounds, the trade show grounds. In other words, you couldn't be anywhere on the convention center grounds themselves. Not on the sidewalk, not inside, nowhere. As long as you were across the street, in the street, it was fine, but nowhere on the ground. So that was rule one. Rule number two was don't scare anybody, because you're going to be a ninja wear. No surprising anybody, no scaring anybody. And I think the final rule was don't engage with anybody. Don't you're a ninja, so you don't talk. And so those were the basic rules.
Right. So what could go wrong? What could go wrong with that?
I figured I figured a few things could go wrong. So what did go wrong? We flew in on a Sunday night. We went straight to the convention center. We met about 5 or 6 of them there. Really, really great kids, mainly college students. Mm-hmm. They're all looking to make a little extra money. And we were standing in the convention hall. Everybody's setting up their booths around us. There's trucks, those little trucks going by, beep, 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 so everybody's setting up stuff. And I basically said to them, look, here's the deal. I gave them the ground rules. Don't scare anybody. Can't be on the convention grounds, and don't talk to anybody. And I was very explicit. And in hindsight, looking back, there was this one guy who was a little bit too jacked up. And he was kind of like, just kind of almost ADDing out, right? And I figured he was listening, but it was just his style of doing things. Yep. And right at the end, the main guy we had contact with, he goes, listen, I can't be here tonight, but these guys are here. They heard what you have to say. They're going to go out and do some test runs, and and we'll do our first run tonight. We'll get started, and we'll see how it goes. I go, great. So at the very last minute, I said, okay, here are these ninja masks. You cannot cover your face. Okay, you can't scare anybody, so you gotta wear them like this. So I put it on, and I show them how to wear it around their face so that people could see their face. And they said, great, all right, we'll go out and we'll scope the territory, and we'll come up with some ideas. And like, well, maybe we'll play some games with each other where we see each other in the street and then we hide from each other, or we could do some parkours where one ninja's there and the other kind of flips over the other guy because we can interlock arms and do something. I'm like, great, sounds good. Mm-hmm. Just keep to the ground rules. So off they go, and we keep setting up our booth. It's 100 degrees. We're running inside and out, bringing in furniture and all this stuff. And it's about maybe 6 o'clock now, and I had met with them at about 3:30 or 4, and we're thinking, okay, well, we hope that went well. This should be done about now, whatever. And we're kind of about to wrap up, and Michael, my business partner, is on the phone talking to the office, trying to get the router set up. And Michael sort of freezes on the phone and looks at me, and he points, and I know something's behind me, and I sort of turn to face this armada, and it's 4 business people, 3 men and a woman. She's holding a clipboard, another guy's holding a clipboard, and then behind them is the security guards with badges and stuff. And are you Mr. Epstein? Yes. Sir, we have a serious problem. And one of the guys, who was an overweight gentleman, was really twitching, was physically just like really upset or about to punch me or yell at me. He was physically shaking.
Yep.
And I knew it was like that moment when you're like a 8-year-old and you just stole candy and
right.
You got caught, sort of thing. And
you're in Texas, man.
I'm in Texas, and he says, "Son, we got a real problem here." And and I'm like, "What happened?" And it's like, "Listen, your ninjas. We have them detained by the Texas state troopers, and there's been an incident." And now I'm thinking, "Oh man, somebody fell down an escalator.
Sure.
Something really bad happened." And I said, "Well, what happened?" They said, "Your ninjas were in the main hall and scared the living bejesus out of people. We thought they were terrorists. They were running in and out of crowds. They were sneaking up behind people. They scared people visibly. They scared people. It was a major, major problem."
Yep.
And I'm like, wait, what? They were where? And they're like, upstairs, right outside of the keynote speech session where Randy Zuckerberg is speaking. They were running around. I'm like, no, that's not possible, because I was very explicit with them. They were not to be on the convention grounds. I read the rules, and they're like, and the guy was upset. And I said, "Listen, I take total responsibility for what they did. I'm really concerned here. This is completely not what my instructions were." And said, "Sir, we're very much considering arresting you for this. This is, I can't remember the exact words, a major transgression, and this is a serious offense." And then the woman jumped and said, "We're considering kicking you out of the show." And my response to that was that, "Well, I respect whatever decision you want to make. It clearly did not happen as I instructed, and if you guys feel that's the right thing to do, I'll respect that, because I definitely apologize. That's not how it was supposed to happen. That was not my instructions, but I take total responsibility."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was critical. If I had put up any fight, it was over.
Right.
Well,
you took ownership too. I think that had to be important to them.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had to take ownership. Yeah.
No, but I mean, not everyone would have. You got to, it's easy to blame a bunch of college kids, and I think to your credit, you said, "Look, at the end of the day, I'm the guy."
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I am, and in that scenario, so we, I apologized, and I said I would speak to him. They said, "No, you won't speak to him. We're going to let him go, and we will give them instructions to not come in within 3 blocks of this place, or they'll be arrested. And as for you, we are going to let you stay at the show, but we are taking a point off of your whatever double secret probation." I honestly, I have no idea what they're talking about. They're like, "For the future shows, this will affect your placement if you, and I was like, I didn't want to say it at the time, but I wanted to say to them, I don't think I'll be coming back to the show.
Right.
But I was pretty shaken up by it, because in the moment, when you have 2 security guards with badges and guns standing behind 4 executives, you're betting odds that you're pretty screwed.
Right.
And also, I think the bigger thing was that our whole marketing, that trade show, we knew we weren't going to get the value out of just having a booth. It's this huge trade show. It's just, we probably spent $10,000 on when you add up the airfare and the booth cost and the, all the logistics, sure. Right? Hotels and food. And, for us, it was really, we were racking our brains trying to figure out what else do we do. Michael, my partner's like, "We got to do something. We can't go down like this. We gotta sort something out. We gotta come up with something." And everything we came up with just requires the whole concept of the ninjas. It requires it's like a story. It requires a beginning, a middle, and end. It requires a build up, and it requires some mystery, and it's subtle. It's meant to be stealth, and just in that short amount of time, we just didn't feel like we could come up with that equivalent effort. So what had worked very, very well in the past didn't work. I mean, it was the 180 degrees. If you could have taken, it was the exact opposite of what you would have wanted.
Right. So lessons learned, like what would you do differently to avoid the state troopers?
I think there's this balance you got to try to get between the show organizers and what your outcome is, right? The show organizers are trying to protect the sponsorship dollars, so they want to restrict. You can't just do anything you want, because then there's no value in the sponsorship packages they're selling out in the lobby and signage around the building and all that stuff. So they've got to protect their turf. But I think that as long as you play outside of the rules and you do it in such a way where you're sort of you're out of bounds, I think that's a fundamental requirement. And I think in looking back, how I would have done it differently is I think the ninjas, I would have given much clearer instructions and probably written instructions in hindsight, and then also had each one of them repeat, okay, you're clear what the rules are, what you can do, can't do, okay, we're clear. And I think it also teaches you too a little bit about, in business, that you may have said it doesn't mean it was heard.
Yep.
And I think that's just a good rule for business, for relationships, for anything. You can say, I said this, but real accountability is, I said this and I know it was heard because that person repeated it back to me.
Right.
I think it's something that is a really valuable lesson, I think, for anything.
For sure. And and considering your audience, I mean, you had a bunch of parkourers, right? You had kids that were amped up to get physical and didn't listen. So again, I think it's consider your audience, and to your point, make sure that your audience hears your message, especially when it is so crucial. When a possible mistake could have been somebody falling down an escalator or getting hurt or whatever. So,
yeah, and I think there's another one lesson out of it, which is trust your gut. My gut was that this one particular guy was just a little too jacked up. He was a little bit he's one of those guys. He was wearing yellow goggles and like he was all, all right, let's do this. Okay, let's It's like I knew instinctually, it was like, trust your little voice telling you this guy's got it wrong.
Right.
Be very, and I didn't. I was like, listen, guys, I gave him the instructions. You guys don't wear the yellow glasses. Okay, that's scaring people.
Right.
So I told them that, and like, you guys, this is all about subtlety, and you got. It's clear that the guy wasn't fully listening, and I really should have trusted my gut, like, to be beyond explicit. I really needed to be triple sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, if you think back to your monks example, what if one of those monks had been sort of exhibiting that behavior? It would have been like, no, dude, amp it down. You're in monk.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Seth, I appreciate it. I know you're in the throes of it there, and you guys are making tremendous progress. So thanks again for the time. Thanks for sharing the story. I know there's a number of folks out there that are going to take this to heart, and hopefully they'll come up with their own interesting guerrilla tactics that have a different outcome. No state troopers.
Yeah, and I think the lesson is that if there was an article I read that if you don't fly too, you do have to fly too close to the sun sometimes. And that's really the board. That's where you want to be pushing that boundary,
sure.
And be prepared for things to go sideways. And if they do, then take total responsibility. But I think especially when you're startup, being conservative and being safe now is not the time. Now is the time to you do want to fly too close to the sun.
I agree. Take chances and then own up to the results if it doesn't go right.
Yeah, and usually they will go right.
Yeah, I agree. Seth, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Cool. All right,
care.
Thanks, John.